guys, welcome to the Drift Podcast. I'm your host Travis.
And I'm Ben.
And today we have another guest. And he is Kristian from Iron Chef Imports. And he's based in Adelaide. Give us some introductions.
Okay, well, I am from Iron Chef Imports. My name is Kristian, and yeah, I've been doing this for importing cars and that sort of stuff for about 20 years now. Jeez,
Wow.
Makes me feel very old. But I think 19 I think I'm up to this year, somewhere around.
Wow.
Actually, 99 I started, yeah. So.
That's almost as old as Ben.
I wish.
Yeah, right. So obviously you've imported some pretty cool cars in that time, I bet, as well, and seen a lot of change in prices, availability of cars, the laws changing, which is a big thing that we're about to have happen again next year. So that's why we got you on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've gone through I think three rule changes now, so this is the third one finally.
Yeah.
But,
actually, now that I remember, there was a big one back in the early 2000s, was it? With all of the grey importing stuff. That was probably one of the bigger ones. 2005 they changed it. There was we used to have a 15-year rule, which was awesome. Wow.
They got rid of it.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Yeah, it would have been good to get the cars back then, but that's why you see a lot of like S13s and Saphiros, and they're all complied around 2002, 2003 type ones, and
yeah, Laurels as well.
Yep.
So,
And yeah, we can't even really get Laurels anymore. So
Yeah.
well, next year we'll.
Next year, yeah.
I'll tell you about that afterwards.
Yeah, we're keen to hear about this.
Cool. Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, now we know who you are.
Speaking of Mike.
Tell us a bit about some of the cars you've owned and your current car and all that.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I can start with the one behind me. That might help.
Yep.
I've got. I change cars, as you can probably imagine. I change cars relatively
Faster than you change
relatively
underwear.
regularly. But one behind me is I've got an R34. That's a V-Spec 2 N1 R34 GTR.
Wow.
Jesus, that's cool.
Yeah.
There are 18 of those built. That's one of the 18. So
18.
yeah.
Wow.
So that's worth a reasonable amount of money now.
Yeah.
Not that really matters. Unfortunately, it doesn't really get driven very much either. That's the downside to it.
Yeah.
But as a daily, I have an Infiniti FX50, which I like. It's a V8.
Okay. Is that an SUV or
they're
something?
like an SUV. Yeah, SUV style with a VK50 VE. That's the motor.
Wow.
They run in those.
Yeah, right.
They're just good. They're about 290 kilowatts. So it's a nice sort of daily. Probably sounds a bit silly when you say it like that.
Yeah.
But,
that's a lot faster
but
than
it's
the
a good
drift car.
day. It's a good daily.
Yeah,
Keeps
for
us-
sure.
Keeps us up.
Interesting.
So,
And what year is that they come out in?
that's a 2011.
Okay.
That's a 2011 model.
Okay, so
they're
around
really
the
good.
V35s then? Is that?
Yeah. Same full pan, so V36 and they all run on the same full pan.
Oh, that's cool.
So
Interesting. Any other maybe notable cars early on in your importing career?
I've gone through pretty much all of them. I love my JZX 100s and that sort of stuff. That was really nice. I had a 100 and a 110.
Yep.
I had an RX7s. I was an old rotor head, so
Yeah.
I love my old RX2s and 3s and stuff when I was younger.
Yeah.
That was in my formative years. Just to give an idea of how old I am. But that was my in my younger days. I was right into my rotors. Had a 13B turbo RX2. And that used to be the Fast Fours had a car that they built, Fast Fours magazine.
Right.
And they I bought that from the guy that bought it from them. The engine was stuffed, so I used to have a Bridgeport in it, and I put a turbo engine in it and that sort of stuff. Threw stupid amounts of money at it, as you do when you're young and you don't have any other debts.
Yep.
So that was my sort of my history over the years. So
Yeah, fair
very
enough.
cool.
Oh, that's sick.
And speaking of fast fours, I remember from my first introduction to you was the columns that you used to write in the High Performance Imports magazine. I used to buy that all the time. So
Yeah, that
tell
was,
us a bit about
a really cool time. Actually, I had a great time doing that. It was, I mean, it's not something you'd necessarily do for pay. It's not, but it's good fun. It's good fun just to write. Yeah, fun. I still get people talking. They still remember stories that I've told that I've actually forgotten. So
the only one that really sticks in my mind.
That time about that car, and you go, yeah, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So then I never work out why they understand these things, and then I forget that I've written about them. But,
the biggest one I remember is the 300ZX that you got for that lady that you made no money off, and you had to import the special color. And
Diana, I couldn't say her name in public. Diana was enough to, gave me a nervous twitch afterwards. But she was that lady. I didn't make any money off her at all.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've actually still got a few crackers. I need to tell. There's a story about a Tesla.
Yeah.
I brought it imported before Tesla came out in Australia. There was a certain media company that wanted to bring one into Australia for a display.
Right.
And so I had to put it in temporarily. In the end, we bought one. Right. So we bought one, a salvage one in the US, and brought it to Australia. And at stupid cost, because what happened was that they were very slow getting involved. And so they brought this car to Australia, but it was too late to put it on a boat. So they had to air freight it. Air freight from the US. Air freight from the US is about $30,000, right?
Is that how much it costs?
They brought it in.
Oh, whoa!
Yeah, it's not cheap. It's not cheap, right? So we brought it in at the last minute, a couple of weeks out. In the meantime, Tesla has come here and set up, right? So they have cars here. Initially, they'd said, no, we don't want to get involved. I made a few phone calls, and Tesla managed to get involved. So they said, okay, that's all right. You can borrow ours for the week, or whatever it was that they used. And they said, oh, we'll just bring this car. We'll still bring this car over just in case. Why would you spend $30,000? Anyway, so I'll tell that story later on. You have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear the rest of that.
Yeah, for sure. See, I remember.
Something that never happened.
Yeah. Wow. And you probably didn't even make any money off that.
Oh no, I did all right out of that.
Okay.
The fun part was actually sending the car back to the States and having to sell it on eBay in the States and dealing with lowballers.
I think you wrote something a little bit. I remember this. I remember you did write something on Facebook about this a while ago.
I cannot believe this dude. He literally, carved me up.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now. I read this.
Paid more than this bloke. But
oh, jeez. Yeah, because there was a guy last year, I think he was, and he air freighted his drift car from America to Japan for a Formula Drift Japan event or something like that.
Yeah.
And people are like, no, it was like the FIA event. And people are like, how much did that cost? And he's like, oh, not telling. And there we go, 30 grand.
Oh.
It's 30 grand would be a minimum, depending on where you're coming from. It is quite expensive. So.
Yeah,
but it's quick, obviously.
Yeah, wow, crazy. Okay. No audio on Facebook Live. Yeah. Okay. We got no audio. I'll just have to re-upload later. That sucks. That sucks. I might just stop the Facebook Live recording.
Yeah.
That's okay. We'll just do a normal upload.
Yeah.
Cool.
But
right. Thanks, XSplit.
Shout out paid programs, never working.
Yeah. Shout out to technology.
Yeah, that's it. Oh.
All right. Yeah. Let's go next.
Let's hear a bit about your business, Iron Chef Imports. You guys are huge. I know people overseas know about your business as well. So
yeah,
you're doing something right. So let's hear a bit about it.
Yeah, no, we do a lot of stuff overseas now. I mean, Troy's based in Tokyo these days, so which has been a real big help for us because we can basically send stuff from anywhere out. So
Yep.
send stuff out to anywhere.
Yeah.
As well as do like
so
inspections on cars and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, he's obviously there doing. He's the hardest working guy in all of the import world. But we get inquiries now from all over the world, which is really cool. We do a lot of stuff. We get a lot of stuff into the States now. New Zealand, we get send the occasional car to New Zealand. We've had one guy this week from Belgium. So that we do lots of weird, interesting projects. But yeah, it's been really. We've got Dobby. He likes to stay fairly anonymous, but I've got a guy who does our social media, and he likes to keep people fairly entertained. He's got a rather unique sense of humour.
Yes.
So yeah. That is always keeps the inquiries rolling in, which is really good. So,
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, it's a good. We got a good team.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, awesome. And so you have been doing it for 19 years as the Iron Chef imports business as well?
Well, no, when I started, I was over there just as an agent. So I just went to Japan. I was over there as an English teacher originally.
Yeah, right.
And went over there and was buying cars for dealers back in Australia. Most we in those days there was no such thing as a broker. So
right.
And so we were just sending cars back to dealers, and they were putting them on the yard or whatever. And then I came back, and because I had all the connections, I was basically sending cars over to friends and family and that sort of stuff, and I was speaking to the guys that I used to work with, and so I just started doing it as a bit of a laugh. And when I this is back in the days of the Fast Fours forums. I don't know if you guys know about that.
Yeah.
Fast Magazine used to have a forum they used to go on to. This is even probably before performance forums, I think, maybe somewhere around there.
Yep.
But they my username on there was Iron Chef, and so when it started to get busier and busier, on my sort of signature under every post that I had, it's just said Iron Chef's cheap ass imports, right? So that's what got me going, and people would just contact me, via PM on there and say, hey, I'm looking after this, looking after this, and I said, no worries, I'll go and get it. And in those days, I think I was only charging like $300. It was really just a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And in the end, it started to get a bit more serious, and I thought I really need to make an actual business out of this. And I said, what am I going to call myself? I don't know, And people just said, why don't you just take the cheap ass bit out and call yourself Iron Chef Imports? And that was how that began. So it was only because people knew my username on the forums that was the reason why I sort of stuck with the Iron Chef thing.
Yeah,
but,
right.
That will be, time will tell how long I can hold on to that, because I actually got in trouble. Fuji TV, which runs the TV show, they're not happy at the moment. So I may be up for a name change. We'll see how I go.
Copper Chef.
They haven't bugged me yet. Controversial.
Controversial.
Brass Chef or something along those lines.
Take the piss.
Iron. Yes. Steel Chef.
Steel Chef. Yeah.
Chef of steel.
I'm sure that a lot of your lovely followers on Facebook could come up with some fantastic names.
And probably a lot that I can't say in public. There'd be all sorts on there, knowing my guys for sure.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Awesome. What do we got next? Well, we might as well, go on with the involvement with drifting as well, early on then as well.
Okay, right. Well, this is going back a very long way. Back in the day, we had when I won't say I I mean, I was the drift judge, so and I was a drift judge with Drift Australia. I wasn't the first. But when drifting got fairly serious, CAMS got involved, and CAMS, prior to the point that Drift Australia had started up, this is going back to 05, maybe 04.
Yep.
But and prior to that point, CAMS wasn't really interested in holding any drifting events. They didn't take it very seriously. But when we started up, me and another guy called Sam, who was judging with me, we were the first two to be the first CAMS approved judges, right? So we helped initially write the regs because the regs no one really knew what the the judging criteria should be and all that kind of stuff. So we went through and wrote all the regs and stuff. But it was it was just so much fun. I mean, it was the old days of Full Lock and those guys. They sort of really were the trailblazers. Drift Australia came along probably a little bit after that, but but we were certainly around the place. My concern initially was that it wasn't really, the drivers weren't really getting a very good deal, so the promoters were doing, but the drivers were getting a bit of a hard time. So so that was sort of how we started. We had a sort of a loose kind of association that we ran, the Australian Drift Association.
Right.
And we used to meet once a month in South Australia, only because I was there. And, obviously a lot of the guys actually, for some reason, there are a whole lot of guys from South Australia that were into it. And that was how we just wanted feedback from the drivers. How do we do this? How do we do that? And, how do we get the best mix that you guys are going to enjoy?
Yep.
Because we worked on the theory that if the drivers enjoyed it, and then they were going to put on a better show and people were going to enjoy it more.
Yep.
So, so that was Drift Australia. I was head judge for until Drift Australia pulled the pin, which was end of 07 or somewhere around there.
Yeah, it would have been like 07 or 08, something like that.
No, it was 08. It was 08 that we finished. In 09, they sort of tried to limp on with another group, but that never worked out.
Yep.
But yeah, it was just as a crew, the Drift Australia guys were just a wonderful, really nice bunch of people to work with. We had so much fun. How could you not have fun? Being flown around Australia and sitting watching drift events. It's pretty much if you're. To me it's not a skill. I'm a track, I prefer track racing.
Yep.
So. Every time, my natural tendency when you get sideways is to lift off the throttle, and I actually found it quite difficult. But I could certainly appreciate the skill. To me, having tried it a few times, I just watching these guys do what they do. You got to understand carcraft, but it's a skill that's very difficult to learn if you've got a background. If you start in drifting, it's actually much easier than if you're trying to. Maybe rallying, I guess.
Yeah.
But beyond that, like a circuit racer would find it the transition quite difficult. So.
Yep.
But yeah, it's great fun. We used to have huge. There are a lot of stories that can never be repeated with the staff.
But
that happened while we were.
That was around. They were doing drifting on Oran Park as well for Drift Australia too.
Oran Park was amazing.
Yeah,
we did both. We did the big circuit and the small one.
Yep.
The main circuit was for the events. We did a couple of New South Wales events there too. I think I came over for those and judged on the small track.
Yep.
But that was just it was a great time. We we had lots of what happened on at Drift Australia stays at Drift Australia and those sorts of stories. But
but it certainly paved the way for a lot of quite big name Australian drivers these days. They had their roots in Drift Australia. That's for sure. Yeah.
Jake Jones and those guys.
Bo Yates as well. He was in that. So, I don't know if Luke Fink was. Was Luke Fink involved in Drift Australia?
Yeah, Luke Fink was in there as well.
Yeah, there's your top three Australian drivers, and they're all involved in that.
Danny Verhumus.
Yeah.
There's a whole stack of guys in there.
Yeah.
Those guys, I still count all those guys as friends. We kept in touch over the years. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. You look back on it now, and as a judge, you're always going to get criticised for your decisions. There's literally no way you can, no way you can get away from that. And at the time, oh man, it would, and it was on in those days. It was Ness and Sylvia, like forums, not before it became hard tune.
Yeah.
But Ness and Sylvia would, the next day, you just sit back and just watch. Like I'd get on there after the event and just sit there and wait. Think, come on, you bastard, say something, and I'm going to bite every single time. So I used to get so wound up by it. But and you look back at it now, you think, man, why'd you care? Why'd you care? But at the time, it's like life and death.
Yeah, well, this is the first time we've had a judge on as well, so this is interesting.
This is cool,
yeah.
I mean, anyone that's judged will understand, seriously, because and the problem is that the perspective that you look at. I'll tell you how I worked this out, right? After having judged a few events, I then went and watched. I sponsored a driver, right? So, and I was convinced he was really good, and he wasn't competing at the time, so there was no sort of competition. But I watched him at an event at Adelaide International Raceway. I was 100% convinced that he had won, right? And it turned out that he lost. He lost the final, and man, I was ropeable.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this guy has been dudded. But what happens is if you've got a friend that's competing, what you tend to do is you watch their car. You don't watch what the other person's doing.
Yeah.
So when I went back and looked at the video later, I went, crap, okay, he was good, but the other guy was also good and only, sort of 6 inches off his back bumper. So it's very hard. Like when you're trying to support someone, you tend to watch them. You don't watch what the other car's doing.
Yeah.
So there's a tip for you. But I loved doing that. It was getting involved. My old mate Robbie Bolger, he used to give me some curry. But can't do much of that now. But he's it was fun times. I mean, he was the villain. Everyone saw him as the villain. And every good story needs a villain, I guess. But so it was good times.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's interesting the dynamic that we get from judges and stuff like that, and it always is the case. Like, you don't want judges to be like good friends with the people who are driving, or if they are, they really have to be able to just put that out of their mind and focus on it. But that'd be hard. Yeah. Like, that's a hard job.
Yeah, it's a hard gig. I mean, I always took the attitude that I was friendly to the drivers.
Yeah.
Without necessarily being friends. But I mean, the reality is you end up being friends with all of them because you're all in the same spot. Every event.
Exactly.
All the same. But I just think I didn't find it hard to be, impartial with those guys, to work out who was there and who wasn't. That for me wasn't side of things wasn't difficult. When you're a punter and you don't care, like you just go and watch and you just, you can sit there and, oh, that's bullshit, whatever, and so, you can play those games.
Yeah.
It's actually worse. It's actually worse when people know who you are and then you're sitting in the crowd. Because everyone, so you get people up on the hill, right, and they're all like this, right, and they're sitting and you're going, okay, they all watch, like that. They'll see something they reckon's just completely rubbish, and then they'll look over at me and what's he think? What's he think? So it's just, I'm like, I never give anything away, right? I sit there, I might go. So you see, they all go to their mates. You see, he said it too. So he thought it was rubbish as well. So,
jeez, the shit you could start with doing.
Oh, mate, you can have so much fun. Honestly, it's a real. You can have a whole ton. I mean, I did the first few World Time Attacks too when they had the drift challenge there. So
yep.
It was really. Ian Baker he's an absolute genius with that event. But,
yeah, that's the best event I've ever been to, hands down.
Yeah. I mean, and to think that he's pulled that off him, pretty much himself. And I mean, he's got a great team.
Yeah.
but
Still a lot of
he's
work.
Actually, he's a very, very smart guy with that event. It's hats off to him.
Yeah.
And the competitors love it too.
Yeah.
So they'll come over and they just go away having had an awesome weekend.
Yeah.
But I got to judge with Tarzan Yamada. That was
Right. Wow, that would
That would have been so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a
so
translator or with him?
No, I can still speak a little bit.
Yep.
And he can speak a little bit of English, so it's very very typical. We sort of end up speaking half Japanese, half English.
Yeah.
We're fumbling our way through and getting the message through. But that was really cool. I mean, he was funny because I had a few Iron Chef stickers there, so he stuck one on his it was quite cold that night, so he had a heavy jacket on, and he just stuck the Iron Chef sticker on his chest. So I took a photo of that. The only problem is I took it with the BlackBerry, and it was about it's about a 30k file. Like it's a
You'd see a couple of pixels that are green, and that's the Iron Chef logo.
I'm sure it's in there somewhere. But it was that was really cool. That was a bit.
That's rad.
Yeah, awesome. We've been through that.
Another one?
Yeah, well, we might as well start getting into some import law stuff. So we just wanted to know what the current import laws are for SEVs vehicles, pre-89, personal imports. It's just a basic, quick one of that kind of stuff for us, just so we can get other people up to speed, especially we have guys overseas and stuff. So
at the moment in Australia, if you're importing to Australia, there are a few options that you can have. One is a specialist and enthusiast vehicle scheme. There are a few criteria that you have to meet. Mostly powder weight is the most common one.
Yep.
There are a few other criteria, but
like
anything
it can't be the same car as what's already here on that scheme as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So at the moment, if the car's sold in Australia, we can't import it.
Yeah.
The model that is. And then we've got pre-89, so any car that's built prior to 1989 can be imported as a classic car.
Yep.
Come next year, that's going to change, and so we will have a rolling 25-year rule. So once the vehicles, instead of being pre-1989 built, it can be a rolling. Yeah, it just has to be 25 years old from the time it's been produced.
Same as America. Yep.
Yeah, same as America. So we'll actually be competing for the states. With the states for.
Yeah, I want to get into that. That's a bit of a rabbit hole we'll get into soon.
We've got a question for that one.
It's not that. You can ask them now. It doesn't matter. But it's not going to be the drama that you may think it will be, because the American
might as well get into that now then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can explain now. It's not the drama that it may appear, because the American market isn't really as well. How can I put it? Not as well developed as ours.
Established
is. So, they don't. When they look at cars out of Japan, they'll look at Supras. They'll look at Skylines. Occasionally you see some other weird stuff in there, but there's a lot of things that they don't buy. You might see the occasional, Unos Cosmo or something like that disappear over there, but most of the interesting stuff that we like / weird stuff is stuff that they don't touch, or they don't know about. So they just say Skylines will always be high anyway. Demand's demand, but
and they're only getting more and more and more demand every day as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's never going to change from here on in.
Yeah.
I think realistically, Skylines. I called this a while ago, but Skylines aren't going to go down in price from here on in.
God no! I'll never be able to afford an R32 GDR again. Go back 5 to
go
5
back
8
3 years
years
when someone offered me swaps for the 8.6.
Oh,
and I said no.
Or 10 grand for a GDR.
I remember, take me back to 2005. You'd be there. You could get one for 15 grand. There wouldn't be a problem. Yeah,
well, even later, around probably 20. It'd have to be around 2010 to 2013. I was seeing them go up for 10 grand. So.
Yeah. No. They'd be roughies at that money, but I always used to say, originally I used to say to people, always spend 20 grand, you know, like you always, because you can buy a cheap one and you'll have to do it up anyway. And then you know, then the benchmark became 25 and then it became 30 and then eventually, you know, you sort of, now to get anything half reasonable, you're 45 grand, you know, so.
Yeah.
And do you think that's purely because of America, or do you think that maybe is other countries, or do you think it's because Japan's starting to hoard them, or what's your professional opinion on what you think might be the cause of them going up? Is it just supply demand as well factoring it, or?
Well, it's always supply and demand. I mean, you can't, you know, that's the basic rule of anything. I mean, that's why this thing behind stupid money. But it's a combination of factors, which is the reason why it won't go back down. I mean, if it was just America, for example, then you would, as soon as demand dropped off from the States, you'd see the prices fall.
Yeah.
But it's not just that. It's blokes that lusted after these cars when they were young.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about guys who, you know, it's a Gran Turismo generation. You know, like people that who played the original GT. Who just fell in love with all these cars, and so you've got a whole generation of Americans who are finally getting access to these cars, but you're also getting you know, Aussies and Japanese kids. I mean, Japanese kids were lusting after these cars too, and they're playing GT as well. They're all playing the same. That game has changed. I mean, amazingly that game has changed the whole face of Japanese cars. Yeah. So it's there's that. There's also the fact that a lot of people have crashed them into guardrails and trees and what goodness knows whatever else. Yep. So the attrition rate on any sports car, any affordable sports car, is always going to be high. Yeah. It's the same with WRXs and stuff like that. I mean, you know, those cars. Really? There's so many of those things too. Early. I mean, STIs over there. But
well, not here though. They're not really going up in price here. It nearly gets to the point where we'll send them
so
over.
Many.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
They sold
super
so
cheap.
many here. That's why. And again, there are a few factors. Number one is obviously how many people like them. Supply here is good. Yeah. So there's no at the moment. There's no sort of great, you know, inkling for people to sort of stash them away in sheds. Yeah. Having said that, if you've got a 2-door STI here,
that's a whole nother ballpark.
It's pretty good. So and again, that's only because they sold 400 originally, and then
was it that little amount that they sold? I thought it was more than that.
The 2 doors, yeah.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
And even then, half of those blew up, so because they didn't have people. So I don't know. You guys probably aren't old enough to know the story, but yeah, they all blew up. They didn't cope because they were built for 100 octane.
I remember hearing about this when I was younger. This is all like hearsay. This is all like hearsay things that you hear and you're like, oh, that sounds weird.
No, it was true.
Wow.
Yeah, so they didn't have knock sensors and they suffered horrendously, particularly in weather. So it wasn't. But as I say, they lost a few early on. But yeah, I think they went back for a fairly hasty reprogram, which also dropped the power output, which wasn't very well received. But
are the Japanese cars that come in like R32s and like is Japanese fuel? Is their premium 100 RON? That's why my 32 over there goes so well. Like I was letting that thing free boost for like a week, and it's still fine. So
I see you like to live dangerously.
Emerson will do that. You're like, wow, it's gone really good today.
I mean, it's funny. I remember in the early days, one of the first things everyone was, you know, really panicked about was making sure that they retuned the cars when they got here.
And that's probably what spurred off NIS tunes so much in Australia as well.
That's their NIS stuff. Yeah. So I mean, they do it great. But so those cars. I mean, any of the modern cars, it's not an issue. They will have knock sensors. They'll sort of do their own. They'll sort. Yeah,
they'll retrim themselves to suit. Yeah. You know,
the early stuff you have to be a little bit careful with, but it's not huge problem it used to be. I mean, BP, for example, I know that their RON sort of fluctuates between 98 and 100 anyway. So,
and you can get United 100, or at least you can at half of them. So Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So
Okay.
it's not the big issue it used to be, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you're talking about personal imports.
Yeah, personal imports.
Personal import scheme is if you want to go overseas, and this is actually the reason why I went overseas. It's not the reason I told my wife at the time, but I'd said, "Oh, look, we just want to go over and experience a new culture and do all that kind of stuff." And in the back of my mind, my dream car at the time. I mean, you got to remember, the late '90s, WRXs were king, right?
Right.
Everyone. WRX,
It was the police had them to catch the guys that were.
People were doing ram raids with them. They couldn't, they were easy to steal.
Yeah.
But they were the car of choice. Like everyone loved them. I actually had, because I got married at the start of '99. Okay. And I actually had WRXs as my wedding cars. A Mercedes, but the cars in front of it were WRXs. But my goal was to go over and buy a Legacy GTB.
I bet you regret that, don't you?
Oh, well, I mean, at the time, that was...
They
weren't here, right? So,
okay. Yep.
That second gen, they weren't even released. So, and I just wanted something all-wheel drive and turbo, or twin turbo, as the case may be. Yeah. But that was my goal, was to go over and bring something back. But these days they've changed it a lot. I mean, in those days it was really easy. You only had to own the car for 3 months, and you could just basically send it back. You didn't have to. These days you have to prove that you are coming back here permanently, right? So, and provide all the paperwork. So, and you have to own it for 12 months now as well. So, in those days it was just 3 months, and you basically every 3 months you could just keep
send another car back. Wow.
Yeah. Wow, it was pretty good. So in the time that we were there, we sent back 4. Yep. We sent back two MX-5s. Yep. One that we kept for ourselves. And I mean, again, you got to remember this is 20 years ago, right? So MX-5 doesn't seem that expensive now, but in those days it was still a pretty cool car.
And was it expensive in Australia to have one, or were there any in Australia back then at all?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, no, there were some here. I mean, the MX-5, we
because they were Oz delivered,
the MX-5
weren't they?
We sent back Otis about 8 or 9.
Okay.
The one that I sent back that my dad ended up buying off me, he that was about 6.5.
Okay. And what was the local prices that they were going for at the time then?
Minimum of 15.
Yeah. So it was a big saving.
Yeah, oh, hell yeah. Yeah, no, it was a real, he just said, there's no way he could have afforded it. But, of course, he's used his connections and got a freebie through me. So he was pretty happy with that. It was, but the one we had was like a limited edition, was, British Racing green, and had the tan leather and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right, yep.
That was pretty cool. Yep. We brought back a Unos Cosmo, and made an absolute bundle on that. That became our first house deposit, funnily enough. Wow. But that was I sold that for 40 grand, and in those days they were big news.
And what are they going for nowadays?
Probably 20. 20.
Okay. So they've gone down. There haven't been one that's kept up.
Well, they went down, and they're actually coming back up again now. So finding good ones in Japan's getting hard now too. So. Yep. Most of them have been pilfered with their motors, so the 20B ones are they're pretty hard to come by. So, but yeah, that car was really cool too. It had the Mazda Speed body kit on it and all that kind of stuff. The car that I brought back that was instead of getting a Legacy, I ended up buying a Galant VR4, the twin turbo V6 ones.
What? They're cool. What are you talking about? Get out of here!
Don't tease me. No, it was a cracker car, a really good car. I mean, bear in mind, the one that I brought back was the only one in Australia.
Yeah, wow.
It was the first one. It was the first one in Oz. No one had seen one before. It was only 2 years old before it.
What was compliance like back then, or was there no such thing as compliance back then?
Well, for personal imports, you really don't have to do much at all.
Yep. For personals, yep.
You have to get it signed off by an engineer that it's roadworthy, and away you go. Yeah. And that car was, people just looked at it and went, "What the hell is this thing?" And it was great. Yeah. You just basically, it was manual as well, so you could just launch away from lights. It was six and a half thousand revs and just sidestepped the clutch and off you went. Well, I did have to replace the clutch. Went out fairly early on. But yeah, that was that. So that was that whole, in the time that we were there, we came back and then we moved back to Australia. My wife started uni and that was it. Came back and I went back to teaching and for a few years and then got sick of that and started doing importing full time. So
yeah, right.
That was the story. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's personal importing.
And what about personal importing changes? Are we going to get any personal import changes in the future? No, that's staying as it is, 12 months. Well, at least it's not getting longer, I guess, like that you have to have it for.
No, I mean, it could theoretically have, I guess, but it's still 12 months. So if you go overseas for 12 months and you buy a car there, it can be any car you like. There are no restrictions on that.
Yeah.
And you bring it over, so.
But essentially, a lot of the cars that people wanting to personal import, they're going to be opened up for normal import now without having to live in Japan. So it's kind of like a win-win now, realistically.
I'll give you an example. And I'm using Subaru again, sorry. Is the WRX STI Spec Cs and Type RAs and that sort of stuff. Because the big kicker now with the new rules is that it used to be if you had a model that wasn't sold in Australia, you could. If you had a model that was sold in Australia, you couldn't bring in any variants, even if they were only sold overseas. So
okay, yep.
Let's use an STI Type RA as an example, right? A lot of guys really wanted those, and they couldn't get them because the base model WRX was sold here. So they wouldn't let you have any variants. Now they're saying even if the normal variant is sold here and the variant that you want isn't sold in Australia, you can bring that in, right? So that's the big change. So there'll be stuff coming in like Evo 9 wagons.
Right.
Right. So there's but even Evo 9 MRs will come in as well.
Okay.
So,
right. This could drive down Evo prices in Australia as well, because Evo is really always expensive in Australia. So hopefully it kind of levels them out with the other.
I would love to say that would be the case.
Yeah.
Okay. Partly because obviously all the Aussie demand will drive everything up over in Japan. But also they are becoming collectible over there too now.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yep.
Evo 6s. Oh my lord! Like
really?
If you try and buy a Tommy Mackinnon now, you're paying big money for those.
Really? Yeah. What kind of big money are you talking? Like
50 grand.
What?
Yeah. See, I was like, when I was a bit younger, I wanted a Tommy, and then I saw prices, and I'm like, nah, 8.6 is good enough.
And they haven't got. Actually, they're just on the Tommy. The cheapest I ever bought a Tommy Mackinnon was straight after the GFC, because what happened was everyone walked away and said, "Oh, the prices are crap. I'm not going to bother buying them, importing." Because what happened was the Japanese yen. It's a bit hard to explain, but in any sort of world crisis, Japanese people all bring their money back into Japan. So what happens is the price of the yen goes through the roof. I mean, after the GFC, the price of cars, the value of the Aussie dollar dropped by 40%, right, against the yen. So we got absolutely smashed. You can imagine that suddenly the price of these cars just gone straight up.
Yeah.
And basically everyone stopped, right? So, but the crazy thing was the yen went up against everything else too. So what happened at auction was no one was buying any cars. What happened to the price of the cars? They started coming down because they still have to keep clearing the cars out.
Yeah.
The cheapest I ever bought a good grade 4 Tommy was Tommy Mackinnon was 18 grand. I landed it here, and complied for 18,000, and that was the cheapest I've ever done. That it was, in the midst of everything else, one bloke came to me and said to me, I want to get it, and that was the cheapest I've ever bought one. I bought a Spirit, an RX-7 Spirit R Type A for low 20s for a guy.
Was that an FD? Hey,
yeah, FD. Yeah. Spirit R's are like.
Yeah, FD.
Are they above the Bathurst edition? Are they? Which one's the Bathurst one?
Oh, you're talking about the Aussie one was the SP.
No, because
yeah.
didn't Japan get the Bathurst FD and we didn't get one?
Bathurst. Yep,
Yeah.
No, they had a Bathurst. That was sort of more of a sticker kit and not much else.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But the Spirit R was the very last of them, and the Type A was the nicest because it had the Recaros and that sort of stuff. And those now are north of 60,000. Because we, say we snagged one really cheap.
As you have a car behind you that's worth a hell of a lot more than 60 grand, though, and we're like, whoa, that's expensive.
Yeah, a lot of people, if they've held onto their cars, have done all right. But the GFC was really weird because the price of we bought some of the cheapest cars we've ever bought. The cheapest I bought an R34 GTR, and it was quite a reasonable one as well. It was Midnight Pep.
Oh wow!
It was 37,000, I think.
That complied and landed, or does that just buy
yeah,
price?
that's landed and complied.
Wow.
All these numbers.
Wow.
So we had and that car now wouldn't sell under 100,000.
No, that's it. Definitely not for a Midnight Purple one.
Yeah. So these are all the things you look back on all these things. Oh man, I wish I'd stashed it. 25 of them in the shed. But it's easy.
Don't even talk to us about that. We both own AE86s, and we remember back in 2007, 2008, and you could buy a notchback for like $4,000, and we're like, I'm not paying that much for a Corolla.
I bought a really mint Treno hatchback.
Yep.
And for a guy, and it was just beautiful, dead stock, and it was just sort of that era when no one was collecting them.
Yeah.
And this guy, and it was for a mate, and he paid $8,500 for it landed in Australia. And he was so upset he thought he'd been ripped off. I mean, we still say friends. But beautiful Panda, it was the perfect car. Right now, it will be 30.
Yeah,
and so I keep reminding him about that every time remember when you thought you got ripped off? He just said, I should never have sold it.
Well, speaking of 8.6s, then what kind of prices are we getting to them nowadays through just buying them in Japan? Like, I checked the prices at what's that place in Kyoto that restores them?
Carland
A86s
Car
and
Shop
stuff.
Tube and stuff.
Yeah, they do all the restos, and they start at like 30,000 AUD for one from there.
Yeah, that's not even
that's
GTA
a basic
figure,
one.
it's
That's
just
a basic one. What kind of prices are we seeing through auction over there? Like, if we wanted to. Not cheap.
And the hard part about all this, and it's the same problem that we're going to have pretty soon even with S13s and things like that, is that because the actual completed cars are worth so much money, people aren't breaking them anymore. You know what I mean? So they're not wrecking them.
Yeah.
So you find that parts start to disappear because what happens is people will take the crappiest AE86s they can find and put holes through the floor. Right, I'm sure you guys know rust is always a big issue in 86s.
Yeah.
But they'll take the rustiest, crappiest wrecks they can find, and they'll put them all together. They'll just find whatever parts they can get. They'll give it a quick spray over the top, and then they'll put them back through auction because they know Takumi tax is going to,
And do they sell like those ones that are just junk? They'll still sell.
This is a stupid thing. They still sell. So
wow.
People are just so desperate now. But guys that are late on the scene, that go, oh crap, I really wanted one of these when I was a kid, and now I want to be able to buy one, and the prices have all gone through the roof. They suddenly see one come up at auction that's $10,000. And they go, oh yeah, I'll get on it. And even if they have to sit there and spend over the next 5 years and spend another $30,000 getting it up to scratch, they've still got something there, so so it's A86s are the same. They'll just, I don't personally get I'm not a huge fan of A86s. They're a bit too slow for me, but
we can't all afford 34 GDRs, man.
Sorry, don't take it personally. But the reality is, it's supply and demand. You're talking about cars now 30 years old.
Yeah.
30 plus years old. So
They're 35.
You know,
Yeah, that's
35.
scary.
35
So
this year.
it's, they're all starting to disappear, and most of them are wrapped around guardrails or whatever.
Yeah.
Or up embankments or in trees.
Anything that's been drifted, that's drifted like 13s. Finding a good S13 now in Japan is almost impossible.
Finding a stock S13 anywhere, good luck to anyone who wants to have a factory top of the range S13 that they want to preserve, and good luck.
And the first to go on those, when I say S13, I'm including 180SX. Is the first ones to go up on those were Type X. 180SX Type X.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Type X's in Australia have jumped up.
They went through the roof even a few years ago.
Really?
You weren't getting anything under 15,000. That was a few years ago.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at one lately, but but you can guarantee that they're going up. The S15s are going to go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Give it 3 years, 4 years.
Well, it's already happening now.
Yeah.
And again, because a lot of them have been wrecked, the supply has dropped, right? So, and those, partly because they were a really nice looking car, and people, when you take a car that's rear wheel drive, turbo, manual, it's got all the things that people want, and you put it in a package that's a really nice looking car. So people they're jumping all over them. And another one from GT, the original GT, that was a big, really popular car. But once America gets on those, you watch, they will jump really hard.
Yeah. They're just the same. The R32's practically doubled in price overnight, when America could get their hands on them. So
yeah. And the funny thing is, if you look at, I equate R32s, the whole era of Japanese cars from about 1989 through to about 2003, all of those cars, it was a glorious era for Japan. There were so many cars in there that were just amazing cars.
Yeah.
Supras, RX-7s, there were just so many really cracker sports cars that they were building.
Yeah.
And those cars are all just going to go, they will go stupid. So.
Oh yeah, you can imagine in 30 years from now, what any of these cars are going to be worth. It's going to be stupid money.
You think back to from the Hakko era, the early 70s. You think about some of those cars like that, the old RX3s and things like that. The prices that they fetch now.
Yeah.
That's exactly where we're heading with these cars.
Yeah.
So in fact, it'll happen even faster because as we all move to electric cars.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll find that these cars become classics even faster than they were before. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Interesting times ahead.
It is. I want to speak about S15s though, because I want to know if that's going to be something that is going to change with the laws. Now, obviously, we only got the Spec S in Australia. With the technicality, is that going to be... Because at the moment, we can import... Is it 1999 model S15s are the ones that are eligible for import, I think, into Australia?
Yeah, up to August... Up to and including August 2000.
Okay. So the later model S15s that we've been locked out of, I imagine that maybe they are a little bit cheaper. Do you think that we're going to be able to get those, considering they're a Spec R? It is a different trim.
Okay. So to explain, we actually did get the Spec S and the Spec R in Australia. The difference was that they were all turbo. Right. In Japan, the Spec S was non-turbo and the Spec R was turbo. So the Spec S was really the equivalent of the Spec R.
So we got no non-turbos in Australia.
No, they were
really
all turbos.
Yeah, it was me.
S14s? Did we get non-turbo S14s?
S14s, I think, was the same. I think we only got the turbo.
Yeah, I think any of the NA ones were important.
Okay. Because you do see some NA S15s getting around, though, but they all must be before that August 2000 model.
S15s.
Yeah, and the Variettas and stuff like that.
They also have to be Ortex. So in the case of the current rules, only the Ortex model, which was a higher spec NA model was had enough power to get the they ran the what do they call it? Not VVTi.
The
VCTSR, yeah.
VCT, yeah. But they were they had enough horsepower to meet the power to weight ratio to be called a sports car. The normal NAs didn't. But to answer your question, I don't actually think that's going to change under the new rules. I think we're still going to be stuck with the early ones. Which is a bit of an ask.
Yeah, because that's the only thing I can think of that would help keep the price of F-15s down a little bit for the next few years. But if that's not going to change, then that's a shame.
I don't see that happening. And what's more, the Varietta's going to disappear. That won't be available anymore. Not that that will probably only affect one or two people. That might have one in the next,
let's not.
5 years. But they're not the best looking cars in my opinion. But that's just me.
Definitely not.
Yeah, so S15, say I don't see prices on them coming down anytime soon. I think S13s. I mean, we talk about Datsun 1600s now. Everyone's in love with Datsun 1600s. I mean, I think S13, 14, 15 is going to be the Datsun 1600 or the Bluebird. Yeah, Bluebird of the future. So
and when you totally think about it, all of the import cars, they are the hot rods of our generations. Or at least younger than you and down they're the hot rods. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that we get guys coming to us who have, lusted after these cars when they were younger, and we're going to keep getting them. I mean, guys that were into drifting or whatever, and love these cars, but now come back with a bit of cash and go, I want to buy a car, and they just go, what do I need to spend? And you sort of go, so you might get an ESX Type X, and you go, if you want a clean one, you're going to spend $25,000, and they don't even blink at it.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the stupid thing was, not stupid, but the amazing thing was when people were coming to us for AE86s and paying more than the new 86. That to me, you sort of go, well, crap, that's, when you're starting to look at that and go, people are prepared to pay more for the old ones than they are for the new ones. And at this point, the new ones are only a year old.
And see, usually what happens with these classic cars is they only go up to around the value of what they were new. But a lot of these cars are going to be exceeding that at the rate that they're going. I mean, 34 GDRs already are exceeding that price of what they were new.
They went past a while ago. I mean, the funny thing was with R34 GTRs, you had this gap of about 5 years between the time that the last R34s were sold and the time the R35 came out. It was delayed and eventually came out. But the weird thing with R35s was that the guys that came and bought them, so it finally got to the point where the R35 came out at the end of 2007, and what happened was all the R34 guys all came in and they went, I'm going to offload my cars, right? So they all, around the time the R35s came out, the R34s all started dropping in price because they were all hitting the market in the auctions at the same time, which is around the time that I bought that, right? So I didn't know it at the time, but I bought that at the perfect time. But what then happened very quickly was that they started to realise, well, hang on, this car's not manual anymore. It's got all these driving aids and all these other things, and they started to miss the connection that they had between the car and driver. So the new car was, while it was quicker, wasn't as much fun to drive. You could take it out in the hills, and it felt like it was driving for you at the time. That's what they said.
Yeah.
And so what happened was, after sort of 12 months, 2 years, the R35 started flowing back through auction because the guys are going, well, if I'm going to sell that back off, I'll go and get the best R34 that I can find, right? So even from that, it's been a fairly steady trajectory because people have been prepared to pay good money because the R35s were a lot more expensive than the R34s were.
Yeah.
So it's, that's always been the case. It's been a fairly steady rise for those. So
yeah.
And that started with people trading in their R35s and going back to R34s.
Yeah.
Funnily enough.
Yeah. Right. Speaking of R35s, then are they going to change at all were they in like a different model range for Japanese versions? Are we going to be able to get them cheaper?
Yep. So you'll be able to get, I don't know if you realise, but the first 18 months or so, it was actually 16 months to be exact, of R35 production, they weren't sold in Australia.
Yeah, I do remember this. Yeah.
We'll be able to go back to getting those again. So the real early R35s with the killer launch control. But and I mean killer in every sense of the word. I mean, it was awesome.
I remember. Yeah.
Lunch gearboxes and did all sorts of
stuff. And they're expensive gearboxes.
Hopefully all those problems have all been fixed. But yeah.
And what kind of prices are they going for? Do you know offhand?
Someone asked me about that. I think probably 65-ish.
And what are they going for in Australia at the moment?
I've never looked at them, eh?
I don't even
probably about 10,000, 15,000 higher than that. I think the cheapest one I saw was somewhere around there.
Because I think they're like 150 new, I think, in Australia from my memory.
Yeah, 170.
Yeah.
But they will be cheaper. And the other thing you can get, there are some models, some variants over there that we never got. So there was the Egoist. There was the we got the Black Edition. There are a couple of other models over there that may or may not qualify yet. It depends on what the government decides as a definition of a variant. Whether it will meet the criteria or not, but yeah, no, we'll see a few of those come in, I suspect.
Okay.
So,
cool. So with these laws then, and you say like with the government still working through what their definitions are of certain things, what's the time frame on this kind of stuff before we'll really know exactly what we want to be able to get?
I think the government's pretty set. Although they was, officially they'll say that they haven't really made their minds up. I'm pretty sure they have.
Okay.
And hence why I'm happy to sort of give advice with a fair amount of confidence that it's going to stay the same.
Yep.
But they have to have it in place. They have to have all the rules and everything in place well in advance of next year. I mean, they didn't have to have it available at the same time as the legislation going through, which happened a few weeks ago.
Yep.
But they will have it all in place pretty quickly. They've got to work out how they're going to implement it all, and we're actually involved in that whole process with them as well. So, helping to just iron out some of the kinks and things like that. Like, for example, there are going to be a whole stack of new cars that are applied for under the new scheme.
Yeah.
Like how do you, with a sudden influx of 500 cars, that you got to, and so we're saying, so what they've decided now is they're going to open that up about 3 months ahead. So that they can start processing that initial sort of surge of applications. So, for all these people that want to buy Evo 9 wagons and Evo 9 MRs and whatever else. So all the cars that we haven't been able to get. But I mean, it's not just Japanese. I mean, I know we talk about Japanese stuff all the time. But, but there's a lot of other stuff in the UK.
Like BMWs and Mercs and yeah.
You could buy an M5, the V10 wagons.
Right.
So,
okay.
But even C63 wagons, which we don't get here. So.
And what about different trim model BMWs and Mercedes, like the higher spec ones? Potentially, like those could also come through. My other one was all the Chevy trucks and Ford trucks and not pickup trucks, like your I forget what their model names and stuff are.
I'm not great with American vehicles,
but like your Tundras and those size utes.
Well, there'll be that. There'll also be things like ZL1 Corvettes, C4 Corvettes.
Yes, this is another one that we wanted to ask you. Yeah, was the
early
Corvettes.
Vipers.
Yeah.
As well.
Okay.
They'll fall under the 25-year rule. But the really cool, one of the coolest ones is the rarity category. That's really, that's going to be really,
which is your hypercar type stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does it count for anything else in the rarity category?
Well, it just basically has to be rare.
So, for instance, would your car behind you be considered rare then? If you could prove that there was only 18 of them made or something like that, then it would be considered a rarity.
That's eligible anyway under performance.
Yeah.
But where it becomes a real benefit. So I'll give you an example, right? So I don't know if you saw my post today on Facebook, but the Toyota Century.
Yeah, I did see that one. Yep.
The V12 model doesn't qualify under power to weight because they, Toyota being
Dumbed
Toyota,
it down. Yeah.
they stuck to their 206 kilowatt limit. Now everyone knows that it makes well over 206 kilowatts, but that doesn't meet our power to weight ratios because they're quite a heavy jigger as well. But they only made them to the tune of about 600, 700 a year max. They're all hand built, so that means that they qualify under the rules as a rare car. But where the rarity category really sort of comes in to its own is because what they're saying now is that cars don't have to be converted from left-hand drive to right. So if you've got stuff like I would use the best ones ever, but Bugatti Chiron, for example. A Bugatti Chiron doesn't have to be converted from left to right. You can keep it here. Now, that's only half the equation. The other half is that the states have to be able to find a way of registering it left-hand drive.
Yep.
And that's another battle to be fought.
Right.
But we've got to the point now where the government said, okay, you can comply at left-hand drive, you don't have to convert it, because no one's ever going to convert a Chiron. It's just not. It doesn't even bear thinking about. But so any of those hypercars in particular, they'll all fit into the rarity category, and we can bring them in left-hand drive, which would be great.
So we can't bring in like your run-of-the-mill Corvettes and Camaros in as a left-hand drive, though. It has to be a rarity car to bring in as left-hand drive. I'll
give you an exception. The final model Dodge Viper.
Okay.
They were actually made in quite low numbers. They qualify and can stay left-hand drive.
Okay.
The Ford GT.
Yep.
Which is the sort of supercar V6 twin turbo, that one.
Yep.
That'll qualify as well. So there are some that sort of sneak in. That fall under that bracket. So yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. I was hoping we were going to get like all like the '90s model Camaros and stuff like that, and not have to convert them to right-hand drive.
They'll be under the 25-year.
Okay, we'll still be able to bring them. And they still have to go right-hand drive though.
Yeah. They still. No, sorry. If it falls under the 25-year rule, you don't have to convert it.
Ooh, I'm going to bring in an '80s Camaro.
I like the old Fox body Mustangs. It's a bit of a thing for me.
Yeah,
90s,
I don't like girls' cars.
But, I might be a part of one. I don't know.
Look, man, you brought in MX-5s back in the day.
Hey, don't you start on MX-5.
I'm the least weird out of any of the online chef crews.
Yeah. I've seen. I mean, I saw the pink VW, or the fake VW.
The fake VW.
Yeah. What other questions have we got? So, what is the number one car you've wanted to import but couldn't, or at least until hopefully next year? You probably imported most of the cars that you really have wanted, I guess. Yeah,
there are a lot of Porsches that I really have lusted after.
Yep.
I'm a bit of a closet Porsche fan, but there are a few. Most of them these days are being brought over, but I love the old 993s. That was my era. The last of the air-cooled ones that will eventually become eligible again, just because they were, from age anyway. But of course those have gone stupid on price now, so now I can't afford them. But in terms of stuff out of Japan, Evo 9 wagons always. I've been really hanging to buy one of those because I had convinced my wife at the time that a wagon would be a nice family car, and an Evo 9 wagon was very sensible. Yeah. But I don't know if she would have agreed with me, but I still. A good fun car just to have. The only problem is so many people want them now. Yeah. And they weren't a heap of them made. So
what was the reason we
we're
couldn't get those though? Because they would have fallen under a performance category, surely.
Well, but I mean, bear in mind they did. But what happened is, I was saying before, the current rules mean that if you bring out the base model car, you can't bring out any
and they
variants.
haven't. What does that come under, a Lancer then, or?
Well, it's a Lancer wagon.
Yeah, we've got Lancer
But we
wagons.
have Lancer 4-doors and we can still bring... Oh, can we not bring Evo 9s in? Is that the issue?
No,
Oh.
no, because the Evo 9s were sold here as a full volume model.
Ah. Okay,
Right.
I understand now. Yep, I'm up to speed.
So what happened was that when they originally created SEVs, they kind of thought that the manufacturers would use the system as well.
Yeah.
But the problem was, so Mitsubishi was the only one that really did, right? So they brought out 100 Evo 6s, they brought out 100 Evo 8s. But the problem was that in doing so, they also provided the information for people to be able to import, to basically bring them in themselves as well. So, so that then cut that out. So Mitsubishi went, well, if we bring out the Evo 9 in full volume, then no one else is going to be, the importers can't bring them in.
Yeah.
So it was designed to cut out the competition. But because the Evo 9 wagon, they sold the Evo 9 and they sold the Lancer wagon. Both of those were too close, too similar to the Evo 9 wagon to let them in. So
Yep. Fair enough.
yeah, so that was a shame, but yeah. There are a few weird things that I like and I can't get.
Yeah. Is there anything going to be changed to do with compliance? Because surely all these compliance shops aren't going to just pop up that are doing like 500 new models of cars that are coming in, it's probably an over-exaggeration of new models, but, like, what's going to be the go with compliance? Because there's specific shops for doing them.
They are trying to smooth out the system, because the problem is at the moment, to give an example, there are over 1,000 cars on the current SEVs eligibility list.
Wow. With a lot more to come.
I think only 20 complied in numbers of 10 or more per year. So in other words, you've got this massive list, and no one's complying them because it's such a challenge to get the car complied, the first car to get through the testing procedures.
Because it has to be a 4.5 grade car or something, isn't that the case?
Oh, not necessarily. It has to be clean, obviously, because you're going to get it inspected by the government. But the biggest issue is emissions testing. Emissions testing for late model cars is 35-40 grand. So if you have to spend that kind of money, you have to then think about, well, I've got to then sell at least 20 cars minimum of this type.
Yeah.
But so before I start making any money on it.
Yeah.
So and then people go, well, if I'm not going to make my money, then there's no point in doing it.
Yeah.
The new system will be a bit better. They're having what's called a model report, similar sort of thing. But then the government, they're smoothing the process out to try and make it cheaper.
Okay.
Because at the moment that it's the government restrictions are what's making, and they're allowing overseas compliance too, which would be an interesting one.
Really? Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's
so I suspect a lot of companies will actually be doing it in Japan. I mean, I
can hear a lot of dodgy compliance coming through with that.
Well, it's this is the other big thing that's changing. So we're expecting that compliance is going to get cheaper.
Yeah.
As people start doing more volume. But the flip side is that you have to now, every car gets verified. So a bit like your Japanese odometer check, how they got the guys do that?
Yep.
So every car will get that now. So they'll get checked on the history of the car to make sure the odometer is correct. They'll get physically checked to make sure that there's no accident damage or anything like that. So every car that comes in under the new scheme will get checked by an independent company. So, so the whole, a lot of the problems of the past are all going to disappear.
Yeah, but there's no bringing in like a semi-modified car, that they just have stock photos of another car that they brought in a couple of years earlier that they put through instead.
I mean, separate SEVs and 25-year-old now. Yeah. I mean, 25-year-old is completely separate. 25-year-old just operates the same way as a pre-89 does now.
Which is like barely any kind of a compliance, isn't it?
Well, it's a roadworthy. It's a state roadworthy. So, and how
that's
they,
gonna
each state has its own regulations.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, right.
All right.
Okay, well that's good then, because the cars that we're gonna want that are gonna be modified are probably gonna be close to older than 25 years anyway. You know, like, and if they're not gonna be, like, if you want to bring in a 34 GDR that's modified, you're gonna have the money to put it back to stock for compliance anyway. Like,
yeah, it's. They're not going to be as hot on mods now for cars under sevs. It used to be it had to be completely dead stock.
Yep.
But the word on the street at the moment is that they will allow light mods. I mean, obviously you can't have a T88 hanging off an R34, but it's but beyond that, as long as it meets, as long as it's roadworthy, it's not an issue. The other thing I should say about the 25-year-old cars is that they have a sort of a scale where if the car reaches a certain point, it's suddenly not manufactured in 1992. It's manufactured in 2018.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you change the drivetrain, the engine, the brakes, the body, the interior, then you're looking at a car that's what they would consider to be built at a completely different time, not at the time that it was first manufactured. So you do have to be a little bit careful with the older stuff, that you don't have, you don't bring in things that are heavily modified.
Drastically modified. But you wouldn't probably do that for most things, at least, anyway. I guess.
Well, a lot of classic cars you're not going to modify too heavily. But I mean, if you want to try and bring in a C10 Chevy, for example, or Ute, and it's packing an LS3, chances are you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. So it's a bit of a grey area. Some things we can get through, some things we can't. Okay.
It should be more open than before, at least. Anyway.
Well, it's the same rules. I mean, they don't allow it now. They don't allow modified cars to come under the pre-89 rule now, so it's no different in that regard.
Yep. Okay.
So,
Next question, Ben. You can ask this one.
Yeah. Can we import incomplete cars?
So say
just a rolling shell
engine,
and have it then still be able to be registered as a street car in Australia?
If you want to, I would still apply for an import approval, even if it's incomplete. The only way you could bring in a car without an import approval would be to send it literally in two separate containers. Have the shell in one and all the rest of the drivetrain in another. But having said that, you have to get an import approval anyway to get the on the road, and you won't get it registered with an import approval. So my response to that is, even if it's a shell, just apply for the import approval. It's not. Okay. I mean, particularly with a shell, they're not going to have any issues with you applying for a shell. We've done that before. With cars that are rusty wrecks. And, it's not a problem.
Fair enough. So, for instance, I'm thinking if we found a rolling shell Hakasuka or something like that, it's not that difficult to just bring in that rolling shell, get import approval, and just put it in a container,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can do that.
I didn't even know that. That's cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. Plenty of projects snuck in over the years.
Yeah, right. Oh, and on that subject then, bringing in a car as a race car only, is anything to do with that changing?
No, that will all stay the same as well.
Which is just...
Well, I mean, you're either a rally car or a race car or a rally car,
and you have to have is it CAMS approval?
You have to have a history. Yeah, you have to have a CAMS license. You have to have a history, not just a CAMS license. You actually have a history of racing as well. So when they ask you for your requirements, they will ask you for evidence that you've been racing before. Okay. So
fair enough.
Cool. Yeah. So now the real fun question: what is the weirdest car you've ever imported?
I know you guys know the answer to this, so
we do have a photo here.
You do have a photo. You can put it up. I don't know if you can put it up on the screen, but give it a go.
Yeah, there we go.
We had I still have such a soft spot for that car. I still wish it's one of the few cars that I wish I had kept. You could have $1 million Ferrari, and if you park that alongside it, more people would come and look at that car than they would at the $1 million Ferrari.
No, you should explain to people what this car is, because we do an audio only as well, so people won't see what this car is too. So.
Okay, so it's a Daihatsu Mirror walkthrough, and the walkthrough is it's like they've taken the front cut of a Daihatsu Mirror and attached it to a block of flats. It really is. I mean, it's just a big box on the back. It's got the world's
Postman Pat car.
It is a Postman Pat car. The windscreen is the world's most likely windscreen to smash. I don't know if, like it sits almost vertical and it's just one big flat pane of glass. So I just remember driving around thinking, oh man, it's going to take one stone chip and this whole thing's gone. Look,
at least it being flat glass, that's easy to replace.
Yeah. So this particular car, for those people that can see it, it's got Iizawa on the side. Now Iizawa is like a singer that was very popular with truck drivers. Like, it's just a very weird car. The singer had really Focus 5s on it. Those wheels were so rare and really cool. Like, it's just a really cool car. I really wish I could have kept it, but it was one of those cars that was really popular with everyone. So when we posted it on Facebook, everyone just lost their collective shit over it. But it was the kind of car that no one actually wanted to buy, right? So everyone loved it, but no one was going to stump up the 8,000-9,000 that we paid. We just bought it because I just said, look, we've got to buy this car. There's no way we can leave it. Yeah. And so hence why we raffled it off, because people went, I'm not going to pay full tote odds for it, but I'm sure as hell going to enter a raffle, to get it. So so it was, it was just really, really popular. We sold out all the tickets, and like people that we did a live draw, and But it had a lot of things that sort of like it was like a wannabe truck. This thing, and when you put it in reverse, as a lot of the trucks have in Japan, it's very polite. They sort of it goes ding ding, and then it says in Japanese. In Japanese, it says, please watch out, I'm reversing.
What, out like of a speaker outside of the car?
Yeah. That was like that's so good. And so goodness knows where it was coming from. We didn't actually ever find it, but we thought, I said to Rob, we cannot remove this off the car. It's
No.
But I actually remember getting in it for the first time, and so we bought this car, and of course you don't know when you buy these, it's potluck at auction. Yeah. And we've hopped in the car, and I've just sort of turned my head around and I put it into reverse, and suddenly it starts talking and doing this stuff. And Troy and I were in fits. We could not breathe. I'm just like, what have we bought here? And of course, it was the slowest thing. It was 550 cc's, and it was the slowest car on the planet. But it was just cool. The guy that won the lottery has still got that car.
Yeah. Also, I was going to ask that. Yeah, if it's still kicking around.
It's cruising around in Surfers Paradise still. So,
in the same look as what it's currently in.
Yeah, has not been changed.
We'll have to keep an eye on that. We're only in Brisbane, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that car.
That's cool, as.
Yeah, if you go down Surfers Paradise Way, you'll see him down there. But yeah, he still loves that car. He got really big offers on that too. He had a few big offers. But yeah, I love that car. I still wish I'd been able to keep it, but unfortunately, these things happen.
So I've just thought of one that we didn't have on the list that's kind of related to that car, and that's K cars. What's the deal with those? Even in our current form as well.
So, currently K cars can't come in it's too hard to get K cars at all under the current rules. There are some. There are a couple that have come through. The problem is that with K cars is emissions. So emissions, K cars aren't designed to go that fast. Right? Yep. So while they're actually really good for emissions at low speeds, we have a test in Australia where they test at 110 or 120 kilometres an hour. K cars, that's not what they're designed to do, right? So the emissions on a K car, when they go up very rapidly, so that by the time you get to 110, 120 k's an hour, they're pushing out emissions are too high. So that was the problem we ran into. But under the new rules, that all K cars are eligible. So
perfect.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah,
having said that, some of the cars aren't, because you still got to have things like dual airbags and that sort of stuff. So K trucks, for example, with the sort of the mini K trucks, we've got to find ones that have got dual airbags, for example.
Okay.
So some, while they're all eligible, getting them complied will be another story.
Because you put up a post a while ago about importing the K trucks brand new. For I think it was only like $17,000 complied or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think it was quite that cheap, but I have to check with Dobby on that. But yeah, you can get them in, but they've got to have dual airbags. So
okay.
And they did go through some of them. There are some that are eligible now, but not many.
Yeah.
So
okay.
But under the new scheme, they all will be. We just got to make sure we get them through on emissions and on airbags.
Okay, that's awesome, because I'd love like K truck is like one of those cars that I've always wanted to have. Like I rent K cars when I'm in Japan. Like I actually get a camper van over there, and it's a K camper van. Nice. Yeah, and it's awesome. Like I don't fit in and this is something that if people are listening and they're interested in K cars, is make sure you try and sit in it before you buy it, because I was I went to an Odaiba car meet, and they had a whole heap of old K cars, like the 80s ones, and I'm like kneeling down next to it, and I'm like at my butt's at the height of the seat, and I'm like, I can still see over the top of the roof. And I'm like, oh god, I'm not going to fit in this thing. But it's not like that with the newer ones, but we are with the old ones. Like, nope.
We drove Aaron. Aaron from Import Monster. If you know Aaron from Import Monster, but he and I are good mates, and we drove on the shipbox rally in a Daihatsu Move.
Yeah, right.
And 850 cc's of raw power. But we sat in that. I mean, Aaron's not a small boy. I'm sure he won't mind me saying that. But the two of us hopped in, and we were literally touching arms. Every time we changed gears, it was like, I felt like I'd been violated. It was a pretty interesting experience. But we were kind of rubbing legs at various points, and we got to know each other on a level that we probably should have known each other on. It was a fun experience.
That's awesome.
That's
awesome. Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to K cars.
Yeah, hells yeah.
Yeah, no, there'll be plenty coming. So
awesome,
and plenty of options available. So
perfect.
Exciting times ahead there too.
Go for the next one.
Yeah, how's like the general cost of importing cars changed over the last decade or so?
It hasn't changed. It really hasn't changed that much at all. I mean, the raw cost of shipping is still about the same as it was 10 years ago. The difference is that probably going back 10 years ago, the cost of fuel was a lot higher. So we had a fuel excise that sort of bumped up the cost of shipping. But the flip side is now, so fuel is cheaper, which means that it's on the one hand it's cheaper to import, but on the other, there are a lot of other things now that have been added in, levies and things like that, that the government takes off you on the way in. So, for example, at the moment, we've got a big problem with stink bugs. So it's a biosecurity risk, and we're having boats turned away and that sort of stuff. So now they're just sort of saying, it's causing some big issues, but that problem's not going to go away. And so what they're saying now is the cost of fumigation and all the other things that they have to do to make sure these boats are okay has to then be passed on to the importer. So, so what that means is that there are lots of little things that have to be done that are adding on to the cost. Eventually, it's all going to creep up, of course, but the price, the actual raw cost of shipping hasn't changed that much at all. So,
do you have like a rough roll on, roll off kind of price?
Oh, it's about 2,000. If you go right, I always use 2,000 as a benchmark, and that's that stayed relevant. For 10 years. So
that's reasonable though.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Yeah. I think.
I mean, given how many processes it has to go through, they have to do a lot of work. It's a lot of work at the other end.
Yeah, even like paperwork wise and stuff like that. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so that hasn't changed.
Okay. I was just reading through the questions. We've done a lot of these ones that we've just kind of spoken about, but one thing I kind of wanted to get confirmed, because I know that a lot of people want them, is the C34 and C35 Lorels. That's definitely looking like obviously when they get to 25 years, that's going to be a go ahead, but is that kind of one that we're definitely going to be seeing?
Yeah, so C33s and early C34s have become eligible under the new rules. The C35 is actually eligible now. I applied for it. About 10 years ago.
Right.
But again, you fall into this problem where people aren't prepared to pay to go through the whole testing procedures, because they don't, unless they know that they're going to buy a lot. But I suspect that will change if the bar is not as high as it was before, in terms of the testing procedures not being as expensive. If it's, if you can get it down to 5,000, you only have to do 2 or 3 cars to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot more people will jump on, right?
Yeah, because they know they're going to sell 2 or 3 Lorels,
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not hard to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, bearing in mind too that the other issue you had under the current rules, they have to be stock standard. So, and of course, in every Lorel is auto. So, you can't
bring in a manual
converter ones.
Wow. It's alright, I have a 34. I'll just pull a gearbox out of that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's obviously fairly easy to convert them, but it is an issue for compliance. If a government came around to have a look at your car, for example, and you've got a manual there instead of an auto,
and especially if they're doing this singular. Well, hopefully that'll be something they allow with these new laws, especially if they're going to be doing this singular testing or checking of each vehicle. Hopefully, things like manual conversion is something that they do allow to just come through.
Yeah, we haven't really discussed that option, to be honest. But the problem is that you're basically signing off and saying these cars emit a certain amount of emissions or whatever. And of course, if you put a manual in an auto, that changes the emissions quite a fair bit. So I don't know how far we'll get with that. So, I mean, the good thing is it's not hard to find an RB25 box or whatever.
No. If you're prepared to spend the money to import the car, you're prepared to swap it to a manual if that's what you want. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. I did think of one other question. It'll probably come back to me. Well, is there any other changes that that you think we might not have touched on?
No, I think we've covered most of them. I know you mentioned there about AIMVIA. AIMVIA is the Australian Imported Motor Vehicle Industry Association. It's a very wordy title, but you'll hear it with AIMVIA. You would have seen AIMVIA. I'm the vice president of AIMVIA, so AIMVIA did some amazing work there. Well, and we've been very heavily supported by various sponsors, and we spend a lot of time in Canberra. So hence why I got a fair handle on what the new rules are going to be like, because I was there discussing them with the government, working out and negotiating and lobbying and doing all various other things. So, the one other thing I would mention in terms of bread and butter stuff, it's probably not really good for enthusiasts, but hybrids and EVs are going to get a real boost. Pardon the pun. But we'll get a real boost under the new rules as well. So you'll see a lot more of those cars coming in. But AIMVIA has done they've done a stand-up job. The amount of time that we spent in Canberra talking to politicians, we got to meet everyone. It was kind of funny because Andrew Broad is now, he's lost his job, I think, at the next election, but he was one that we got along really well with.
Yeah.
And Jamie Briggs was another one. He also got in trouble for things that he did overseas. So we seem to be cursed. I don't know what's happening. People, I think we're exciting politicians, and then they're going overseas and sorting themselves out. But I don't know. But yeah, we've made some good connections there, and obviously.
I didn't realise you were vice president of it. That's really cool.
No, we keep quite busy. My frequent flyers are racking up. So,
is it a business type thing? Like that? Like, are you getting paid to work for it? It's association.
No, it's a free.
I mean, obviously, it helps with your actual business, but that's still like a lot of work and dedication to just do.
Yeah, I mean, and it is for all the guys that are involved. I mean, we had to, my business advisor said to me, look, I can actually draw it with a ruler where you started working for Aimvia because you can see where you. But you have to take the long view. I mean, if you don't, it's about okay. Well, I want to. If there are going to be changes, one, I want to be there to help push it.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit there and just be a passive, bystander.
Yep.
I want to be there and involved, and two, I want to know before everyone else what's going on and
be the one that gets the changes that help you and your customers, and there's no one really better than Australia's biggest importer of Japanese cars, and to really be pushing for this kind of stuff,
it's good. I mean, I enjoyed it anyway, just because it was nice to. I mean, playing that whole game in Canberra and learning. I mean, I've learned so much about Canberra. I mean, to give you an idea, we started with Ricky Muir. Ricky Muir was going. He lost his job. Back in 20. I can't even remember now. 2016, 2015. Yeah, I mean, he started in 2013. So. But and he was awesome as well. I mean, we made some really good. I've made some good connections in Canberra now, and that serve us well in the future. I mean, the industry has grown up a lot because it had to. It didn't have any choice. It's not just a matter of now of just a few random, I guess. Workshops that are all sort of operating on their own. We've got ourselves organised. We've got a presence in Canberra. We've got a lobbyist that we pay, and he's absolutely brilliant. This guy gets us, gets our foot in the door with all these politicians and everyone else. So, it's been a really worthwhile time, and has taught me a lot too. It's made me realise that the business, all our businesses have to change. We have to pivot. We can't just keep selling R33s and L Grands and
especially when you're going to start competing with America, you will need to get into those other makes that can still can bring over.
I mean the whole market is changing as well. I mean we just can't expect. I mean, a lot of the dealers they've been relying on L Grands and the Steamers and those sorts of cars, the people movers. And they are disappearing under the new scheme. They're not. They never. Yeah,
because they'll bring them in as camper vans or something like that, and then they get them complied to be a 7-seater again.
It was a bit of a loophole.
Yeah,
it was a bit of a loophole used, and it was a very successill loophole. But it's one that the government has now closed off with the new legislation. So, having said that, you can still get hybrids in. So, you can still bring in the hybrid vans or whatever. But it's not. They were determined to cut that off. So a lot of guys are going, "Oh, well, that was my bread and butter. I'm not going to." I can see a lot of people would just go, "It's too hard. I'm not going to take on the new scheme." But a lot of the guys, a lot of the younger blokes, I'm not sure if I should call myself younger now anymore, but
young at heart.
Young at heart. That's right. Thanks, boss. But it's the younger guys, the newer players are now becoming the older players effectively. So and so we're sort of all stepping up and going, well, the best thing you can do for the industry is to have the right people in the right positions. So the guys that are all working in Aimvia, for example, are really switched on. We've got an amazing bunch of blokes who have really committed time and in a lot of cases money too over the years. So it's and our sponsors have been prepared to back us as well. So and it's really made a difference. I mean, if we'd been left to our own devices, we would have been stuffed. So it's makes for a positive future for the industry. And I mean, it's as much as there's part of me that sort of goes, but it's even my competitors will benefit from this as well. But you need to have that whole group. I mean, as an association representing an entire industry is far more effective with government. Because makes us bigger. So
no, that's it. It's great. Like, it's exactly what we need. Like, I couldn't care less about the guys trying to make a quick buck off selling L Grands and stuff like that. It's guys like you that are really bringing in the cool stuff and stuff that we can preserve in Australia, have
Weird
good
stuff.
car.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't care about Elgrans and stuff like that. If they all go and disappear, that's no skin off my back, you know. So
we still sell them. We still sell Grands, but it's just a different market. The whole market's changing now. As I say, I think the numbers will be in EVs and hybrids.
Yep. For sure.
There'll be certainly a lot of extra cars, a lot of 25-year-old stuff coming in.
Yeah.
The occasional exotic. You know, there'll just be some really cool stuff to sink your teeth into. So.
Yeah, and I'd love to see a big market push on not just hybrids, but even like your K cars. Like in cities, you're not getting up to 100 Ks an hour. You know, so they are going to be more fuel efficient. They are going to be better for the environment overall. Like so. Yeah.
And I'll work on the theory that the more hybrids and EVs there are on the road, the more fuel there is for the people that really care about it. So,
you're right about that. Yep, that's it.
Mums and dads don't care whether they use 2 litres per 100. In fact, they probably love it. They prefer it. But for the rest of us who need it for their race cars or whatever, then it just means that we squeeze it out a bit longer.
I mean, mine's on E85, so you just got to stop eating sugar, and I'll be all right.
Make corn for it. But it's true though. Like I mean, you think about how much fuel is wasted just sitting in traffic. You know, from older cars.
Yep.
And you know, I'd much rather keep that for Yeah.
I mean, I'd be stoked if my work van was a hybrid car. You know, like I'm all for that. Like, so
it's not. You're not going to get joy out of driving to in Sydney peak hour or whatever. So it's you might as well do it in a car that's not using any fuel.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
there you go.
Is there any other things you can think of?
That was the last one.
I think we've gone through it all.
Yeah, that was an extremely educational experience for me.
Yeah,
like
Yeah, no, that's good. Awesome. I'm really excited for the 25-year rule. I think that's going to be a big one for majority of the people that listen to this. That's got what's going to be really exciting for them because we already have all the cars that America wants. So we can look forward to getting the cooler cars that we have not been able to get up until next year.
Honda NSX.
That's a big one because America already has them, so they have no need. So
I mean, we do, but not to the same extent. The only problem with NSXs in Japan is most of them are auto.
I wouldn't care, to be honest. I love NSXs.
Why not? So there was still a really good-looking car on the road.
They're definitely cool as.
Plenty of those coming over, that's for sure. We've been buying a few
NSX coming here?
Yeah, it's already here, isn't it? They displayed it.
That is up for debate. They're sold here, you realise.
Yeah.
Do you know how many they've sold?
No.
Since they brought them out? 2.
I was about to say, I think it's like 2 or 3, wasn't it? Yeah.
Is it because they're really high priced compared to what they're selling for in Japan?
Yeah, stupidly high priced.
Yeah.
So that one will be one that's up for debate with the government as to whether we should be able to bring those in as imports because we are. You know, if you want to argue about whether a car's been brought to market, if you say a lot of cars, there are a lot of cars being sold overseas, but they're priced so high that that none have come in here.
Yeah.
Then are you genuinely supplying that car to the market or not?
Yeah.
So that will be one. That's one that we're going to have a bit of an argument with in coming months, I suspect. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. There you go.
Awesome. Well. Thanks for that, and I'm sure we'll be chatting to you another time, especially closer to when these laws get really finalised and stuff starts coming in. So,
more than happy to, boys.
Awesome.
Let me know whenever you want to chat. We can fill you in on once we got a fair idea of where things are heading. We can nail down exactly what makes and models are coming in. So it's looking pretty good so far.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thanks for that, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time, man.
Yeah, and good chatting to you
guys.
Yeah, mate. Have a good one.
No worries. Thank you.
Catch you.
No worries. Okay. See you later.
That was rad.
Awesome. Let's go to this one. Cool. Well, that was really informative. Yeah,
I didn't know half of that.
Yeah, I'm genuinely excited for these changes. This is going to be
25-year
big step forward for Australia.
Very
yeah,
good.
yeah. I know this episode doesn't really affect most guys overseas, but
It's a big deal for us.
it's a big deal for Australians. So
well, more or less big deal for enthusiasts like us that
Yeah.
won some of the not so
yeah, 'cause-
popular cars that never really got sold here and
yeah,
previously.
so that
not
other
allowed.
countries can start being jealous of us again.
Yeah, everyone
All
else
that
is
cool
everyone
cars.
else is getting what we had, so
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we need to get new stuff.
Yeah, that's it. We're gonna change it up. Any news? I know that IDC's gone and it's being replaced with something of another name.
Yeah, I can't remember the name off the top of my
Has
head.
drift in it.
Yep, so we're gonna the new Irish Drift Championship,
Yeah.
whichever one it is.
Whatever it's
the new
changing.
name.
Yeah.
That was a sort of big question. I was at work at the time.
Yeah,
and I
I
shouldn't have
shared
been
the
on
post,
my phone, but I was, and then
yeah.
the boss walked in, so I didn't really get to see the rest of it.
But yeah, that should be interesting. We'll see what happens next year with that, because that was a pretty big worldwide championship. I know even Link ECU even sponsored that championship, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And yeah, look forward to that. Any other news that you can think of?
There was a few little things that just like a long week with everything. I can't remember. That's horrible, isn't it?
Sorry, this video isn't going to be live. Our audio wasn't working for our output live, and
Shout out
also,
to XSplit on that.
yeah, and shout out to YouTube Live for just completely going down. So
Yeah.
that one didn't even work either. So, but we'll make sure we upload. You can always catch us on every single podcasting service. And if you can't find us on a podcasting service, though, do send us a message and we'll sort that out.
Yeah, we'll
but
fix that.
as far as we're aware, we're on every single one. And we're also on Facebook and YouTube as The Drift Podcast.
And Instagram is also the Drift Podcast. So go give us a follow.
Yeah.
We're posting cool things.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for
and
listening.
watching.
Yep. And any comments, just send them through.
Rad.